Yeah, we're live. 7:01. I missed it just by a little bit. As you can see from the thumbnail, I went out today and shout out to Todd for hooking me up. Took a little drive today and picked up what looks like a our fingers crossed. That's going to be our poll for tonight. Is this thing going to run? Will this motor that I picked up today run? The story behind it is it was sitting somewhere and it needed to be cleaned out, and so I went and picked it up, and either way I can put it together and make it do something. But right now I don't even know if it turns over, if it was running, if it's a runner, if it's rusted shut. I don't know anything about it. I haven't even tried to spin it over yet, so I need to do that. I need to take the plugs out of it, at least I can do that tomorrow. I can take the plugs out of it and just see if it spins. If it spins, I have like, I've got usually the phrase is if it spins, it wins. It's not always like that, but sometimes it is. And it looks like, if you look at the top of it, especially, it's like most of the wrecking yard motors that I get. They're not, while the editors and stuff of the magazine guys got crate motors that are all shiny and look nice. The stuff that I usually get looks more like this. It's greasy and grungy, and it's high mileage, and it's just all of that stuff. But sometimes those are the best ones. Sometimes those are, I'll probably take and clean this thing off and kind of see what's underneath there. But I'm pretty sure we're thinking it's a 4.8, and I'll look in there and just check I'll check the piston to see if it's a flat top or if it's got or see if it's got the dish in it. That should give us a fairly good idea. It's got, I think I saw that the heads were 706 heads, so that's pretty typical. It's 706 or an 862 head. There's no intake manifold on it right now, but it would, if it is a runner, it can be used for a lot of testing that I want to do coming up on the LS stuff. And if it's a 4.8, maybe we can try a Truck Norris cam in the 4.8, which would be beneficial. Find out how well it does. And the other thing we can do is run boost on it, which is always a good thing. But the other plan is that it could also be a motor that I could use as a motivational source for the Nova, because the 4.8 would actually be maybe a good match for this 3-speed Saginaw Trans that I have in there, just to get it up and running so that it powers itself and drives. Even if, like I said, if I've just got a bungee cord myself in with a lawn chair for right now, it might be a good candidate. And honestly, I would just run it. This one already has a converter on it, although the converter that's on it, I'm sure, is a stock one that came out of a 4L60E. If this is indeed, I ain't no punk. The combos are endless. Thank you very much and it was great to meet you today. That was awesome to spend. It's always good to go meet new people, especially car guy people that are real car guys. So I got to see a lot of cool things that he's got going on, and it was awesome. The truck was fantastic. All of that stuff. The Jeep, I think, is awesome. The Jeep I would love to have. That's an awesome piece. And then you could turbocharge the 6-liter that's in it, which they all, every motor needs that. So it's awesome. But the LS, I got my fingers crossed. We're hoping for good things. And either way, we can get it running. So that will be a good deal. I probably would run it if I put it in the Nova, which I plan to take down to West Tech. I'm hoping, I get my fingers crossed for this month, for March, and do a whole series of things I have to do, because I've got a bunch of parts for it. I've got all new suspension and sway bars, and we're going to obviously fix the brakes and do all that stuff. So whatever needs to be done is going to need to be done, and we'll make that work. And then swap a motor in there and get it running and do burnouts and stuff, which will be cool. And I'll have to do a lot of things that I don't normally do. Most of my stuff that I do and that I've done for the last 20 or 30 years has primarily been engine dyno testing. And so that's like really easy because even when I have to swap 10 cams in a day or whatever it is, or cylinder heads or all that stuff, that's really fairly simple on the engine dyno. It's a lot easier to work on that stuff. And so I don't do a lot of fabricating. Sometimes I have to fabricate stuff for manifolds and things like that, but not a lot of chassis stuff. I've done your normal installations on shocks and springs and sway bars and all that kinds of stuff. But I've done work on when we've had to do the race cars, like World Challenge stuff. You know, I could bolt stuff together and things like that. But I've never built a roll cage, never done welding of that sort of caliber, and I don't think we're going to do that with the Nova either. But it will be cool to be able to work on stuff that's outside the norm, and that means doing whatever you have to do to make this work. So you know, brakes are obviously going to be a real key priority when you get this thing running, because you have to be able to stop before you can make it go. So the suspension's got to be done, the brakes will have to be done, we'll have to put some kind of seat in it, the gas tank is obviously going to have to be done. I'm either going to maybe drop the tank and just put a new one in. It depends on how we're going to take a look in there and see how rusty it is. You know, we can do the muriatic acid and chain and shake it around and knock all that stuff off. But the problem with those kinds of things is that even if you get 95% of it out there after doing that a number of times, there still gets to be a lot of deposits in there. So what you end up doing is clogging fuel filters 3 or 4 times before everything works. I might just put another, you know, surge tank with an inline filter in between there and make that work. But either way, we'll run I probably will run we'll run it carbureted. I already have the LS MSD ignition controller. I've got a carburetor, I've got a small Holley carburetor. I don't know if I have a dual plane manifold. So Holley guys, if you're watching, I probably will hit you guys up for something. I could buy one from Summit or whatever. And so I probably would want to run a dual carburetor or a dual quad intake manifold on there if I'm running a carburetor. The motor would have either the stock cam or some kind of mild cam. I've got some stuff sitting around. By the way, so you guys that are watching, if there's anybody out there looking for LS cams, I have 2 of them. I have 2 used ones that I brought home with me. So if you're looking for an LS cam, hit me up, send me an email, and I'll tell you about them. They're pretty good performance cams, so they will be good for a guy putting together an LS. So here's my email. There's my email address. So send me over an email if you're looking for an LS cam. I'm going to post them up somewhere or whatever, just to try to get rid of them. I'm still trying to get stuff out of my storage. I just want to go through all of that and stuff that's been sitting around for a long time. Obviously not the Nova stuff, because that's got to go on the Nova. And the goal for this month is to get that thing like running and working so that I can at least drive it around. The other thing that I'm excited about is, and when I was over picking up the LS, is that TODD has a Trail 90. So we're going to work out some kind of cool trade for the Trail 90, because I really want one of those to drive around on, and I can use them to go out on the country and look for snakes and stuff. And I like those. I think that those are super cool. And then, you know, down the line, I got to have the Trail 70 too, because and maybe a 50, because you know, you got to have the whole family, because those are awesome. But I'm excited about that, and I'm always get excited about getting a new motor, whatever it is. So I'm hoping that this is, you know, because that's the cool thing about getting it. And like, if you get a brand new crate motor, you know, it's a good crate motor and it's going to work. You put it on, it runs, and it does all that. When you get a wrecking yard motor, or somebody gives you a motor, then you don't know what you're getting. It's like a mystery thing. You don't know if it's in good shape. You hope that it is, and you know that it runs, and that it has that all the cylinders are working and stuff. And then the cool thing is if it's not, if there's something going on, if it has a rusty cylinder or it has a stuck lifter or whatever the deal is, you wonder how inexpensively you can fix it. And that's part of the excitement about doing this car guy stuff, is immediately you go down the, okay, how cheaply can I fix it? How many things can I reuse? And in this case, I don't have to build it up to be like a 1,000 horsepower LS motor, because that's not what we're looking for. I'm just looking to make the thing run. And, you know, I don't know that I would leave the stock camshaft in it. We might put something, you know, you got to put some kind of thing in there just so it has that cammy sound. And so it makes, you know, a little bit more power, especially on a 4.8. We don't need a very big cam. So I might have some mild stuff laying around that we can make work. And then with a dual plane, you know, we have to, obviously, if I'm going to run a dual plane carbureted intake on the LS, I have to pick a carbureted cam, right? So everybody now should be saying, Richard, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so here, this will be our poll for tonight. Will the 4.8 liter LS picked up today. Is the 4.8 liter. I picked up today a runner. Will it run? Is it a runner? Let me know. We'll see what you guys think about the. You guys saw the picture on the thumbnail, hopefully. And so, what do you guys think? Is this mystery motor that I picked up? Do you think it's actually a runner? Does it have all 8 holes and stuff? Will it work? So that'll be our poll for tonight. Okay. I got a turbo the Trail 90. That's what Todd was saying too. And he picked up. We were looking at the exhaust on. He goes, you know what I see? I see a turbo. The turbo needs to be there. Obviously, it does. So a Trail 90s. What kind of power is that thing going to make? Is that going to make 10 or 20 horsepower or something like that? It can't be very much, I would imagine. I think that I'm thinking back that when we did I had a 125 SSC shifter cart and we ran it on the chassis dyno at the show shop. And I think it made I'm thinking it made 30 or 31 horsepower. We had to roll the roller to get it going, I think, but we strapped the thing down on the chassis dyno, on the dyno jet. And I think it showed about 30 horsepower at the tire, which we were pretty impressed with. I have a funny story about the shifter cart, and that's that I originally got it because we did this whole big deal to work out a trade to get it with this company and did a bunch of ads and things like that. And we got the shifter cart because we wanted to run it in a silver state. I thought, it's going to be cool. This is something that nobody's ever done. And now there's obviously a reason for this, is that we were going to run this air-cooled shifter cart, terrible idea, in a 90-mile stretch of road where top speed is important and cooling and keeping the motor alive, all of those things that are not going to be great for an air-cooled motor. But we wanted to see how fast we could get it going. So my buddy Bernie and I took it out to our favorite test site, Area 52, out in Nevada. And we were going to radar it like we had taken the Civic out there many times, and my Mustang and his Z and all of these things out into our top secret closed road test facility. And so I took the shifter cart, I had my helmet on and stuff, and I went, wow, 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 wow. We went down the road, I don't know, a couple of miles, it seemed like. And so I turn around, he's ready there. He's got the radar gun, and I go, okay, we should be able to get up to top speed by the time I get there. And I'm like, bah, 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 go through all the gears. And pretty soon I'm out of gears. I'm like in 6th gear, and I'm running top speed. And I've gone maybe, I don't know, quarter of a mile. So it was just endless time at wide open throttle, running already at top speed before we finally got up to him. And I think it was like, I don't know, 94 or 95 miles an hour. But it was up to speed like immediately. So we're thinking, well, obviously we need to work on a couple of things. We need to work on aerodynamics, and we need to work on gearing. We need a lot more gearing for this thing. So we're trying to figure out, they're like, no, that's already the biggest sprocket that we have, or the smallest sprocket, or whichever direction we needed to go. And that's the most gearing that we have in the trans, and you're gonna have to change the tire. And what is it you're trying to do? Why do you want to go 110 or 120 miles an hour in this little shifter cart? And we explained to them, and they were like, how long is the race? And we're like, yeah, it's like 90 miles. And he said, well, how many turns? Like, how often are you going to be breathing this thing? We're like, no, there's no breathing the thing. He's like, oh yeah, that's not going to work. That would be a bad idea. And as it turned out, we didn't do it. And for good reason, and now thinking back, like running wide open throttle like that for 90 miles in a shifter cart like that on a road like that would have just been, it would have been like horrible torture. So that's why we didn't do that. But it makes me wonder what a Trail 90 would do in terms of power at the tire, and then what size turbo we would have to use to make that thing a little bit better, or maybe like just a 10 shot of nitrous or something would also be good. So what do you guys think? What is our so are we optimistic on our is the 4.8 I picked up today a runner? We have 89% saying yes and 11%, shame on you, 11% saying no. We have 71 votes. We've got 132 people watching. Everybody get out and vote and let me know what you guys think. We got to send good vibes out into the world, because that's how good things happen. I'm hoping for good things, and I'm hoping that at the very least, if I have to take the heads off and stuff, that we can, we can make all of that work. So we'll see. Okay, so let's see what you guys got going on. Hopefully you've taken a look at the last video that I put up, which I'm now going to take a look at and see where are we at here. Software update. Who wants to do a software update? That's not even good. So, really, it's upside down? I need to work on that. So I told you I didn't flip it. I need to go in and edit it and flip it and turn it around and save it and flip it and turn it around and then send it. And I didn't do that this time. Upside down. Oh yeah, the last one I did was the 120 horsepower gain with the LS. Pretty normal stuff with the turbo deal. That's why we do those camshafts. So that was pretty fun. The next time I head down to West Tech, which should be fairly soon, I'm hoping to do more testing on the 5-liter Ford with the Summit Alphabet cams. And then also what I want to do, and I have my fingers crossed that if this is a good running motor, if not, I've got to go get another one from the wrecking yard in terms of LS motors. I want to run the Brian Tooley Racing Truck Norris cam under boost. So we want to show whether or not every cam actually is indeed a turbo cam. And I think the best way to do that is compare that obviously to the stock cam, and then we'll see what happens in terms of power, because it looked like the Truck Norris cam was as good or better than the factory cam through the majority of the curve. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the turbo. And we've got a few different turbos that we can run, but we'll just pick one. This kind of power level, the GT45 is good, or maybe we'll try maybe we'll run the VS Racing S475 and see what happens with that. So that should work out good. So those are the plans. I need to also get the Magnum running. Those are the things that I want to get going, at least initially, and then we'll work on the other stuff. I'm hoping when I go down also that the 2.2, we probably won't get to run that, but I'm hoping the 2.2 will be done. So who knows? We'll see how much time I have available and how much dyno there is available and what all can happen. Because I'm really excited also about running the turbo, any kind of turbo motor, but the turbo 2.2 would be very cool. Who's bored a 5.3 to 5.7? Do they live long? Yes, they do. We have one at West Tech, and they last a long time. Hopefully the block isn't cracked. Richard, if it's not, I say bore that thing and leave the stroke. So leave it if it's a 4.8, leave it a short stroke, but add bore to it. I haven't ever done that on a 4.8. We have done that on a 5.3 and made it into a 5.7, but I haven't done the bigger bore on the 4.8. So how are we looking on our poll? 92 votes. So we got 150 people watching. Get out and vote and rock the poll. Work the poll. 88% yes and 12% no. I'd like to see more L86 content. The thing about the specific designations of the LS motors is that all of those work the same. If you have a 6-liter, the 6-liter that you do, whether it's a 6.2, whatever it is, I think an L86 I think is a 6.2, or I mean a 6.0. And if it's that combination or an LY6 or an LQ4, an LQ9, whatever designation it is, the 6-liters respond the same to all these different things. So if you saw us test an LY6 and it had rec port heads and we add a cam to it, it's going to do the same thing to another version with rec port heads. If you saw us do a 6-liter with cathedral port heads on it and we did cams on or intake manifolds, it's going to do the same thing that it does on your version of that motor. There's nothing terribly specific about that. The only variation would be that we don't normally run variable cam timing on the Gen 3 or Gen 4 stuff. Tall Garage, thank you very much. Richard, I'm working and welding 2 LS heads for a Ford inline 6. Once I get it running, want me to send the head over? You could do a back-to-back test. Are you going to actually run it on something? Are you going to weld them together and make it work? That would be interesting. I think guys have done that, and I think that they've also, because the bore spacing is almost identical, they've done also somebody did 2 Cleveland heads like that as well. Michael, I've been able to pick up beat up contractor vans with 200,000 miles, 6 liters, and 4L ADEs for 2,500 or less. Good place to find 6 liters. Yeah, the vans have good stuff. Yeah, we won't do 80 PSI in the Turbo 2.2. We'll be running low boost on lots and lots of different tests, and then we'll obviously be turning the boost up because that's kind of the best thing to do on that motor. Does the eBay T45 live for long on a street rod, sometimes track? The GT45 I have has lasted a really long time. Stock LS1 in a 2002 Camaro SS, 13,000 miles, pretty low miles. Amsoil oil change at 10,000 miles. When should I swap out the problematic needle bearing rocker arms? Well, we have rocker arms that in motors that have 250 or 300,000 miles, and they're the original ones. So I think you're probably good where you are for a long time. Richard, ever get bad lifters that were cheaper priced? I've never put any lifters in any kind of new lifter that ever went bad, but we don't run them very long on the engine dyno, so it would, we could get away with a lot of things that you don't get away with on there for long periods of time. A 6-liter or 6.2 are nice to have. They're hard to find in wrecking yards, so if you find one, that's good. Have you ever made a stroker 5.2 Magnum, like go from a 318 to something else? I've never even run or built a 318, so I've certainly never done a stroker version of that. I did try to do a 408 stroker out of a 360, but not out of a 318. Building a 5.3 with flat tops and stage 3 truck cam. Eventually we'll add a 671. Okay, that's unique. Chris, I scored a 6.2 that had a rod knock, in air quotes, ended up being a blown rocker cup. That's a much better deal. Turbo Monza, I do rods and pistons and cam and springs with O-rings and head studs. If the car is light, it should live a long time. You do O-rings on the heads or the block? So Kevin, you went to the yard and did some preliminary measurements, and if I can easily make an adapter for the 5.7 Hemi to use the M122 from the Cadillac. Okay. I'm seeing a lot more of the older iron 6 liters in the junkyards. Those work equally well. The head is still a good head. It's just iron instead of aluminum. I think it's an iron 317 head. It's not that casting number, but that's what the head is. And that's actually the motor that we used on the first 6 liter that I did, the first Gen 3 6 liter Big Bang. That motor was originally a 99 or 2000 iron headed motor that came from Chad's Suburban. And obviously we replaced the heads on it for something decent, but because we do heads, cam, and intake on those, and then ring gap and head studs, and then leave the bottom end stock. And that thing had 249,000 miles on it. 79 Camaro drag car with a Project 6-liter. Nice. So, Dan, your project car is a Porsche 930 slant nose. So I want to ride in that one, Porsche 996 GT2. And in the slant nose, we have to play Miami Vice. You have to play Phil Collins. Richard, you got Ellis cams. What about a 6-liter? Would you rather use a 5.3 Gen 4 aluminum short block for drag race setup or the LQ9? I think it depends on what you're trying to do. Guys are making really, really big power with like an L33 with an aluminum one. And obviously it's going to be less weight. I honestly don't think you can make as much power with an L33 as you can with a 6-liter, because I think that the 6-liter is bigger and it makes more power. And also, if you're trying to make really big power, I think that the 6-liter probably would help spool that turbo better. But for drag race applications, you know, with the big turbo, you have 2 steps and lots of stall speed and all that stuff. So maybe for really high horsepower stuff, that becomes less of a problem. And again, it would depend on what is your power output. Do you want 1,000 horsepower? Do you want 1,500? Do you want 2,000? What is it you're trying to do? You have 15 vehicles and 12 of them are projects. So you have 3 good running vehicles. That's actually a pretty good percentage. So how's our poll doing? Man, the no's are creeping up a little bit. Is the 4.8 that I picked up today actually a runner? We have 124 votes. We got 179 people here. The rest of you need to vote. We still have 84% showing strong, and we like that you know, we're putting that positive energy out there. Ray, I wanted to say I've always been anti-LS and anti-turbo forever, but after watching many of your videos, I'm a changed man. Turbos work. There's no doubt about that. I mean, obviously, and Brule, actually, oddly enough, I speak to him as often as I can. And I was talking to him when they were doing the engine master stuff, because they were doing testing on the exhaust manifolds versus headers on the turbo stuff. So they were in constant communication, asking me questions about stuff. But he was saying, he said, I've always been, all motor and big block, and it's, if you can't make power with an all motor, then you don't know how to build engines. He said there's actually a lot that goes into making these turbo motors work, because he had to spend some time trying to get the thing to be repeatable and all that. And he said, and it's amazing how much power they want, or that they can make with turbo applications. And there's no reason that you have to pick one or the other. They're the all motor guys that are, running 10,000 RPM motors and doing all motor stuff. That's awesome. And the guys that are doing nitrous stuff with 3 or 4 or 5 kits, how many ever they're doing, that's awesome stuff too. And blowers, and all of it's good. And obviously when guys do it well, it's even awesomer. 17 different kinds of awesomer. The wrecking yards here in Vegas pull the engine and trans and sell them at the front entrance of the yard for exorbitant prices. Wow, I've been to wrecking yards in Vegas, and we pulled the engines out, because I remember doing it. It was like 112 or 113 degrees, and we pulled 2 big blocks out. And we won't be doing that again. I invited a friend over, and he definitely won't be doing it again when I lived out in Henderson. And we went to a self-service one. So I don't think that they're all like that unless they've changed. My track car is a 79 Coupe de Villion with a compound boosted 396 with twins and a supercharger. That's a lot going on. My uncle is looking into getting an old Jaguar XJ12 and putting an LS into it. That'll be good. Get some style. Okay, he was talking about doing a 94 millimeter FIS turbo, so he's after a lot of power. Yeah, that's going to make a lot. O-rings for top fuel hoops. Okay. What would cause cam sync to fail? I'm sure fail periodically and shut off the car. Do you have a bad sensor? Do you have a bad ground? Richard, when you're talking 1,000 horsepower turbos, if it's a twin turbo deal, are you saying two 500 horsepower turbos equal 1,000? Yes, that's what I'm saying. What do you suggest for 1,000 horsepower for twins in a single setup? The twins are GT 3582s, and a single is an S475 or S480, depending on what size motor you're talking about. Or a VS Racing 7875, S475, S480-ish range. All of those are kind of the 1,000 horsepower. Chris, the 60 is at the machine shop getting a spa treatment. It'll be a turbo build, unsure on turbo size. However, I want this build to sound mean and lopey. So then you can just cam it accordingly and it'll sound cantankerous. Richard, you should test quick spool valves. That would be interesting. I don't know that a quick spool valve is as beneficial on an artificially loaded engine dyno the way that we do it, but I think it might still show if we did it with a pretty good sized turbo. And I have one from Byron at VS Racing, because we were going to show what a compound setup does with a big turbo like that, and then adding either nitrous to spool it up, or in our case, I was going to put a root supercharger and then use the root supercharger versus the NA version to spool that up. Yes, B52s are awesome. And even before Love Shack, Planet Claire was a much better song. Some pretty good project cars in the chat. Yep, those are good. How would you modify a head to work on a block of similar bore spacing? How would the gaskets and head studs align? There's a lot more to it than the bore spacing, obviously, because you have the push rods have to work for a push rod application. The valves and the valve reliefs have to work. There's an awful lot that has to go into making it work. But if you're not starting out with the same bore spacing and they're overhanging and mixing and matching, it's going to be really, really hard to make it work. I'd like to see a video of you checking a junkyard motor. What do you look for? You'd be surprised. A lot of times it's me walking over and going, yes, I want this one, because it looks good. It's the cleaner of the ones that I've looked at. Sometimes we would take the plugs out, and I should do that all the time. Sometimes I'm just too lazy and I don't want to do it. Take the plugs out and at least spin it. Just make sure that it spins around. If you do that and they spin, usually there's a good chance that it's good. And then after that, it's just, hack and slash. And some of the guys that really get after it, they cut the frame rails and just pull the whole front of the thing off. Admiral, crazy idea running propane on the fuel side of an EFI nitrous plate. I'm thinking about doing it for my 2V because a trick flow manifold is going to get it's going to be bad at flowing fuel. So you could do have you, well, I don't think those nozzles are, you could do an individual fogger for each cylinder if you wanted to do something. I mean, that's a lot more money. Turbo Monza. So you think that two GT 3076s would do 1,000 horsepower? Edward, 600 horsepower to the tires on a 331 small block Ford single turbo and a 2,250 pound car. That's very svelte. That's all I need. That would get with the program. That's got to go 9s, right? Casey, I want a 76 Laguna S3 slant. Wow. The guy talked about Texas Speed described the Trunnion upgrade as more like insurance when you're doing a cam swap. It is, and we've talked about that here on the live feed many times, and it doesn't, because somebody asked me that you need to do a test on Trunnion upgrades to see how much power they make. I told them they don't make power. What they do is keep your rockers working, especially ones that have 250,000 miles on them, because they're, the factory roller rocker, or it's a roller Trunnion, works pretty well. And obviously, if otherwise it wouldn't have 200,000 or 300,000 miles on it. So they do work, but they have a cycle life. So if they've gone 200,000 or 300,000 miles, just getting new ones is a good idea, or upgrading the trunnions is also a good idea. If for no other reason, then they're probably tired. Richard, do you still make Engine Masters videos? If not, what happened? I'm not part of the Engine Masters family. They have asked me on occasion to come on. Like I've sat in for Belay when he wasn't available, and I've come on when they've done situations where they were doing turbo stuff because they don't understand it as well. And so I was there to help them with that. And like when we did the Big Bang deal, that was kind of fun. But I'm not a regular there on the show. Katie, out of my 12 projects, only 4 don't have engines in them. Everything else runs and drives. See, he's already showing off, man. Oh, they all run and drive around. What kind of project is that? In 1972 V Cleveland had 11-1. The 2Vs had that high compression? I know the 4V stuff did. What do you think is more important, valve angle or head flow? Well, the valve angle is what you get head flow from. So I would say the flow rate is more important. Because if you change the valve angle and you don't improve the head flow, something probably is obviously wrong. But an altered valve angle doesn't necessarily guarantee head flow. Hugh, the driveway engineer. Yes, I follow his stuff. He gets a lot of 6 liters up in the Michigan area because as you were saying, in the junkyards, because the bodies are basically rusting and falling off of them. 92 Z28, white with red stripes, anniversary with T-top. So yeah, those are cool. Currently getting swapped with a crate LS7 and a T56 Magnum. That'll be a good combination. Honda J32 with a single turbo. So have you been following along with the updates I've been doing on my buddy Jimmy Hiddle's Acura NSX? He has a J32 swapped NSX with a single turbo on it, and right now it's making about 600 at the tire. The last time the first time he's run it at the track, it was running 133 or 134. So it's getting with the program. I just sent him, as a matter of fact, I was going to do an upgrade or an update on, I just sent him a Kenny Bell Booster pump for the pump that he has in there now. And we're going to, and so he has enough fuel to do what we need to do. We're getting another pump, more than likely one from Holly, so that he can turn it up to whatever level he needs to turn it up to. It will be enough pump to go all in, basically, even with the 85 or methanol if he wants to try that. So it will be a good upgrade. And if we get the pump from Holly, then I'll do a video on the install and all that stuff. And I've got more, and I've got videos that I'll be doing on this NSX because it's really cool. An NSX is not an inexpensive car, especially now. But a J32 from the wrecking yard is definitely inexpensive, and it's right up my alley. You have any small but Chevy heads you're looking to unload, or LS heads? I don't have any heads. The Dodge Stealths were twin turbos, yeah. And the Mitsubishi GT3000s, the VR4s. I'll be in Arizona in 2 days. Let me know about picking that motor up. Oh yeah, what was the motor that I was looking at? Oh, it was the 8.1. That's right. Please, Goodman, send me an email. I'll put my email down again. Although I kind of want to take a road trip because I do like road trips. That's right. Planet Claire does have pink hair. No one ever dies there, and no one has a head. Richard, how come my Junkyard 5.3 were different colors when I pulled the valve covers off? Are you mean from one side to the other? That's PCV. One of them gets all of the oil vapor, and the other one doesn't. All the rockers are on one side are a different color than the others, if that's what you're talking about. Richard, 5.3 Gen 3 new comp cam, change sprocket springs under load on the highway at low RPM. I hear a weird out of sync tick. Any idea? I don't know. Is it hitting? Is something hitting something else? I mean, I'd have to listen to it to see what it is. All of the chains I've ever seen have slop in them. Although I haven't heard that when it's driving. Is a rocker loose or something? Richard, will a factory LS ECU run a turbo, or should I go aftermarket like the Holly? I only run one because it's convenient and it makes tuning very fast, much faster than a factory ECU. But Matt Happel over at Sloppy has lots of free cabinet tunes that you could put in factory ECUs and run turbos with them. Yeah, I don't. Casey said, watch out for engines and cars in the wrecking yards that have been hit in the front. They can do damage to them, and we don't ever pick those. What the ideal situation is a motor that's been crashed in the back, or not a motor, but a car that's been crashed in the back and been totaled because it was crashed in the rear. That usually means that to us that the car was running and driving, and that's a good sign for the motor. And then when somebody hit it or what it spun out or they curbed it or whatever they did, it was driving when that happened, and that's the kind of motor that we want. Majority of the time, by the time I see them, the guy who pulls the motors has it on his cart waiting for someone to show up and pay him. Yeah, $100 is about what the going rate is to pull them, and that's a good deal for me, especially while I'm dyno testing. If I can go over and select the motor early in the morning, and I have a guy that will pull them for me sometimes if I can't do it on days where I'm actually on the dyno running a test. So if I can be over there doing that and he's pulling the motor that I want, and then I can go over at the end of the day and pick it up. Like I said, it's multitasking, and sometimes I got to do that. 351 Windsor or 390 FE. I want to build a 390 FE. It's going to be a pain to rejet or direct port nitrous on the manifold. Yeah, it is a lot of work. I use a stock chain adjuster. It was tight, but not too tight. On a 5.3, it had a chain tensioner on it. Yeah, there are guys that just sit at the wrecking yard and pull motors all day. That's what they do. That's how the guy makes money. And the guy that I use is a guy that I'd used for a long time. It's good people. Is home porting 862 heads worth it? Yeah, I even did a chamber and did a little bit of porting on one, and we picked up actually the one that I did. We just did chamber, and the chamber work was like 15 CFM. So yeah, it's definitely worth it. Oh, thanks, Hugh. Yeah, working on Engine Masters is a lot of fun. Those guys are really, really good. Freiberger and Dulcich have done more in a year than most people have done in their whole life. They really are car guys, and Dulcich is amazing. He's a lot quieter on camera and stuff, and he's quieter in person also. But his ability, like his range of stuff that he can do and do very well, it's really impressive. Can pushrod be performance or more suited to work motors? No, it's not. That's a myth. You can make any motor do whatever you want. If you look at pushrod motors, just look at what a top fuel motor does. Look at what a NASCAR motor does. Look at what a Pro Stock motor does. Look what a Turbo LS motor does. All of those motors are definitely race motors. I just want 425 to 450 at the tire. Didn't the first couple of years of 2V Cleveland's have closed chamber heads? Not in the United States, they don't. the closed chamber 2V heads were in Australia. I think all of the 2Vs that we got in the United States, and I could be wrong about this, but I thought that all of them were open chamber 2Vs. We had closed chamber 4V heads in the United States, but I didn't think we had 2Vs. David, how bad will it be? LQ4 317 heads, LS1 intake, and Elgin 1840 cam. The sloppy stage 2 was boosted, but now may have to go NA. Okay, it's still going to make decent power. That's not like the LS1 intake is, other than the LS4 intake, is the least powerful of the intakes. So if you can put a different, like a truck intake or a Trailblazer SS or an LS2, some other kind of intake manifold, it will make more power. That sloppy stage 2 is not a bad cam and a 6-liter. The 317 heads, if you could put a 243 head or whatever, but that will work, and you can drive it around and it'll make decent power. Just came in from Debo's live chat. Cool. Wish I had some guy at my yard to pick and pull to pull an engine for 100. Yeah, you gotta find the guy, man. You gotta find your guy, and you gotta treat him right. Timing pointer is bent touching the damper, but a timing pointer is not going to be on an LS though, right? Let's play guess the horsepower for my Dodge Stealth. Stock bottom line LS1 228 230. That seems like the sloppy stage 2 cam. TEA 241s. Those are good heads. Fast 102 Vortec SI at 6 or 7 pounds. Is it intercooled and what kind of fuel? And that's going to vary a lot. I'm going to be, Oscar wanted to know if anyone messes around with an 8.1. I'm going to be doing an 8.1 before too long here. Dan also, and whenever you talk about pushrod motor, somebody has to bring up the Chevy Ilmore motor. Yeah, they had tiny little push rods to get around the, because they allowed pushrod motors to run more boost. And that's the way that they were trying to equalize the power output between the pushrod non-dedicated race motors and then the dedicated race motors. And so Ilmore said, oh, well, we're going to split the difference and get all the boost from the pushrod motors, then all the technology from the race motors, and we're going to dominate. And they said, and they did. And then they said, that's really nice. That's a really, really cool design. Oh, by the way, don't bring that back anymore. How much cake down oil is on the valley cover? There's a lot on the, there's a lot all over the motor. Have you checked out Bren speed, guys, for the Ford modular Coyotes? I have not. What's the most unique find you've seen in the wrecking yard? The coolest, one of the coolest ones was finding that Olds 442, the quad 4 version of that. And I wish I could have had the whole motor. I mean, the whole car, because the car was in really good shape, which to me kind of meant that the motor was not going to be in good shape. But it was a stick car, and it was an HO Olds quad 4. So is everything that I would want in that kind of car. Richard, on that new 4.8, you always set the screw off the valley posts and so on. I don't know what, I'm not understanding what you're saying. So are you going to Coyote or Fox? it would work good, huh? I'm building an NA 6-liter, 317 head, stock valve size 11:1. So you put pistons in it then? Pro Street Wiseco piston, 600. 224, 236, looking for 525 at the crank. Did I pick the wrong combo for a street motor? No, I don't know if you'll get to that power level. What is I didn't see what intake you were using. The 317 heads, unless they're ported, are going to be kind of holding you back. Renaissance. To get rid of displacement on demand. Yeah, you could put you could put plugs basically in those towers that are under that valley plate, or you can, and then you change the valley plate also. But I've seen ones that hammer in and ones that screw in. Can you put bigger than stock valves in a 706? Yes, you can. I was sent, and I need to send them back. It's been forever. We tested a set at Brian Tooley that somebody did, and if you're here, I can't remember your name. It's TCH heads or something like that. He put the bigger valves from the 243 and 317 heads, put those valves in to replace the smaller valves in the 706, and it actually picks up power and picks up flow. So the bigger valves will definitely help that. The problem is if you're doing that, well, and we did it on a 5.3 and it picked up power. So I was going to say it might shroud the valve. I would definitely try to unshroud the chamber if you're going to use those bigger valves, because I think you might pick up even more if you did that. I found an SVO Mustang and 79 pace car Mustang. Both were gone through. Not many 60 cars I've seen. The Quad 4 was a cool little engine. Quad 4. Now I'm listening. Yeah, I did. There was one, and I did a video on it. It was in one of the videos where I did the walk around inside the junkyard, and that was one of the ones that I found, and I really liked that car. Finally got around to watching the Magnum test on Engine Masters. Okay, so that's up. That's good. The Dan saying that the Quad 4's blue head gaskets. How does the 5.3 single turbo like E85? They love it. On the way snowmobiling. Okay, cool. All of Western Washington is out of Caramel Delights. Oh, the Girl Scouts. I'm a Samoa man myself. I'm going to start putting my Quad 442 on my channel. Oh, cool. If you have one, those are awesome. I had the 2-liter or the 2.0 and 157 valves in my 706 heads in my LY5 5.3 liter. Have you ever messed with a slant 6? I do have one. One was given to me. Unfortunately, it was down a hole, so we had to fix it. And I think that the head's done. Well, it is done on it, so I need to put it back together. How do you determine a proper carb size for an LS, since the valve train flows so much better than your standard small block Chevy? You just, for me, I do carb size by power output. And so, and then you can also factor in there if you wanted, because all of the people that have big motors, like whenever I run a 650 Holly on a 454, people lose their mind. Oh, you can't, that's way too small of a carburetor for a big block 454. No, it's not, because the motor only makes 370 horsepower when it's stock. So if you closed your eyes and said, I have a 370 horsepower motor, how big of a carburetor would you use, and how much do you need? You don't even need a 650. You could get away with a smaller one than that. But the thing is that it makes so much power down low that you don't have to worry so much about carb signal like you do on a 370 or 400 horsepower 302. So you could get away with a bigger carburetor on a bigger motor that makes the same amount of power. So that would be the secondary thing that I would look at. But normally I look at it as power output. How much power do I need? And then I choose the carb accordingly. Girl Scout came to our door selling cookies. I said, give you $100 worth of Thin Mints. That's not even one full box, right? How many engines do you currently have or you're working on? I have to go through and count them in my storage and stuff. I am in California, yeah. I do not live close to the garage I do not live close to West Tech. I live 450 miles away from West Tech. A lot of people have a TBI. Please dig something out for the history. I actually haven't done testing on TBI other than to take a TBI motor and take the TBI stuff off. We tried to do a bunch of TBI testing and it just didn't work out. I think I need to revisit that. 276 cam, 512 lift in a Magnum. That should work good. We'll have to get there. Oh, you're in Chico. I've been up there many times. When I was running cross country in school, we used to go up to Chico, and I got accepted to Chico when I went to college, but I ended up going down to Irvine and then Fullerton. Pablo is providing a formula for carb size. I don't use formulas. I just use power output. But Corey's confused. Push rod length at 1/2 to 1.5 turns. Gen 3 lifters. Yeah, a half turn is okay, and so is 1.5 turns. If it's less than that, you may get you may get lash. You may have problems with it. We've run it tighter than that, but I don't usually recommend it. If you go beyond 1.5, it can hold the valve open, so that's kind of the safe range. Highway 5 is a long, lonely drive. It is, but it's nice to put cruise control on. Are there any older turbo V6 motors aside from the Cyclone and the GN? The one that I would like to run a turbo on, just because we were talking about it long ago, was I did a turbo on a 3100 Grand Am way back when we were doing all of the 3800 Grand Prix stuff. We did a turbo on a 3100 Grand Am motor, but I would like to do it because he also had a 3.4 liter twin dual cam motor. And so Aaron, if you're out there, I've been talking to him for years and years, but if you are out there, that's awesome. But he had a twin dual cam that we did some extrude honing of the manifolds and did exhaust on it and all kinds of things. But I think one of those would be kind of cool. And I haven't ever seen one, I think, in person, but the 3.1 liter factory turbo Grand Prix that they did would kind of be interesting. Do LS7 lifters have more plunger travel? I don't know about the plunger travel. The thing that I want to measure is I want to measure the depth and see if it's different than a standard lifter. So is the 4.8 liter that I picked up today actually going to be a runner? Is it a good motor, or is it just disguised as a good motor? So we're getting more no's. We're up to 21% on the no's and 79% on the yes. So keep those yeses going because we want it to be a runner. Quarter turn, call it a day on lifter preload. I usually don't go quarter turns on LS stuff. On everything else, on small block Chevys and Fords and stuff, I usually do a half. Why did GM use a 780 carb on the DZ302? I don't know. You can use that. They also use that 780 carb on a big block, a 425 horse 427. They use that same carburetor. I think that they also used it on the LS6 on the 450 horse 454. I think that was their go-to big carburetor that they used on all of their performance models. And if we run a slightly bigger carburetor, we can sometimes make more power. But the thing is that just because we can make 5 or 10 more horsepower or whatever on the dyno doesn't mean that that's the optimum carburetor for driving around on the street. You know, you have to look at both ends of the equation there. With head flow bench, what would be the difference in bore size going from a 4125 to a 4070? Do you mean if you flow tested it, what would be the difference? It would be different for different heads. An Olds Jetfire 215 would be good. Richard will have to answer that. I left mine open. I don't remember what the question is. I don't know about plunger travel. I don't know if there's a difference, obviously a big difference in plunger travel between a standard travel lifter and a short travel lifter. But I don't know in the standard travel lifter if there's a standard travel lifter range from the different manufacturers. I don't know if they have all of their bodies done the same. The 780 that they use from the factory on the Chevys is a vacuum secondary. The F84 Ols, 85 Ols, yes, turbocharged. A Turbo 301 Trans Am is a scoop of awesomeness. No wrist pin in the oil ring on a 331, but a 347 is bigger and therefore better. Yeah, Bob, if you've got an LS7 torn apart, it would be good to compare it to another one. You can measure the plunger travel. I've done a ton of quad 4 engine development. It's a great engine. I've won in a you have a quad 4 in a snowmobile. That's kind of awesome. Turbo Monza, I don't have any small block Chevy heads. Oh, the question was, Richard, what? Richard, here, okay. Question was, what plugs did you use to put in those oil valleys? Holes were, that we're talking about. I used one that were supplied with a kit. The Brian Tooley Racing has one. The guys from Cam Motion have one. Lots of people have a kit that they sell that comes with that stuff. And they were just, if you measure the hole, you can get dowel plugs that you can just tap in there. Because it's not anything special. Oh, the upside down one is catered to the New Zealanders and the Australians. Nice. So for a Recport LS head on the flow bench, what could be the difference using different bores? I don't know. I haven't done specifically that test. I don't know I don't know that you'd see a big gain going from a 4070 to a 4125 on a chamber that's only a 4070 chamber. But you have to measure the chamber and see what the width of the chamber is. And if it's 4125, then maybe it would be more prone to benefiting from a 4125 bore fixture. But if the chamber is 4070, I don't know that it would. And also, that's not going to make a difference if you're running a 4070 bore anyway, what you flow it on. Richard, have you ever used diesel turbos on gas engines? I have. I don't know not specifically the Power Stroke, but we have used whole set turbos that were diesel applications on small block Fords specifically. Great idea for the Nova 94 to 97 Jeep. Have a 12.7 to 1 gear ratio that swaps in. Is it a 12.7 to 1 ratio gearbox that swaps in? What are you talking about, the steering box or the transmission? Mike, thank you for showing up. All 4.8s are runners. Yeah. Tom, use a GT45 for your 5.3, looking for 700 crank horsepower. That's right in that wheelhouse. There are others that you could use that are better, but I don't know that you'll find any that would be better and spool up and cost that amount. A 301 is definitely other guys' Pontiac. Although all Pontiac is other guys, and I have a Pontiac coming up that I am going to run. I'm gonna run one with my buddy Andy. He's got a 400 that's basically all stock, and so it's a 4-barrel quadrajet cast iron manifold, stock heads, stock cam, all of it. It's just basically a reproduction motor. So we're gonna run that on the dyno. Oh, steering box. Okay, that makes sense. We're thinking about trying a 6-liter Power Stroke turbo on a 5.2. Let me know what happens if you try it. I don't know what size turbo that is, how much it will support. The steering box is great for Chevelle swaps. On short travel lifters, I use a quarter turn. On a short travel lifter, you have to be specific about the preload on it. But on a long travel lifter, like I said, it's on an LS anyway. Like I said, on small block Fords, like when I'm doing the cams on the small block Fords, they're going to run a bunch of the alphabet cams. On the stock one and on the 274 cam and on the E cam and on the Summit E cam, it was a half a turn. Renaissance Man, we'll see you later. So it's like a GT 3788, 59 millimeters, makes 425 on a 6-liter Power Stroke. It really makes that much on the Power Stroke. That's pretty good power. I was wondering because I have flow numbers for my ported heads, but they were flow numbers using a 406. So you want the flow number to be higher because it was on a 4070 bore and not on a 4125 bore. I don't know what that difference would be. My guess is if you saw any difference, it would be maybe better at the top. Hugh is out. Okay, guys. Yeah, I'll give the 1-minute warning. So somebody else come up with the final question. We're going to take a look and see what our poll is. Is the 4.8 that I picked up today, is it a runner? And we're back up to 81% in the yes. 236 votes. That's awesome, guys. Thank you for the poll tonight. So we're going to go, we're going to stay with the yes. Caleb, so yours will be the last one. Coolest thing I almost purchased in a yard was a 1963 and a half Galaxy 427 lightweight. It got away. It was gone the next day. That's another good question, Brian. How do you know it's a 4.8? I honestly don't. I'm going to have to look inside and see if it is a 4.8. One of the things that did get away from me that I missed in a wrecking yard, and this was I think about a year ago now, because I think I talked about it on one of the other live streams, was the fact that there was a guy while I was standing in line paying for what I was paying for what I was buying, probably a motor or something. I think it was an LS motor or something. I looked over and saw another guy working on a W-headed Chevy. And I'm like, wait, that's a 348 or 409. It turned out it was a 348 and it had the 4-speed trans with it. So I walked over, I got out of line, even though the line was really long, but I had to walk over and talk to this guy. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Where'd you find that? He goes, yeah, big score, huh? I said, dude, I had to give him a fist bump because I thought, dude, that's really awesome. I said, it's got to be a 348, right? He goes, yeah. He goes, but the trans works and it feels like it's good. The thing spins over. He said, I think it's a runner. I'm like, dude, that is so awesome. It would have been cool if it was a 409 kind of thing, but it was, she's so fun. You could put the valve cover on there and still say 409. It would still be awesome. But I have never seen one of those in the wrecking yard. And the wrecking yard that I went to, the one in Ontario, has this weird area that has all of this eccentric stuff in it. And he found this truck that had this full-size truck that had this 409 in it. So, good for him. I had to tell him, good job, because you got to, it's not just if you score stuff, it's other guys score stuff too. That's kind of awesome. So thank you guys all for showing up and participating in the poll. And the Galaxy that got away, that would have been awesome. A lightweight Galaxy, any kind of Galaxy would have been awesome, especially a 427. That's like real money now. Thank you guys all for showing up, and I will see you guys all tomorrow. And by tomorrow, hopefully I should know whether this thing spins and whether it's a 4.8 or a 5.3. Thanks, guys.